Hey guys, welcome to tonight's video. This lesson is on quick graphs. So far we have been working with slope and y equals mx plus b, and we've been plotting some points, some coordinates, and making some graphs. And tonight we're going to learn about a way in which we can make this a little bit quicker, only using 2 points. So we know so far that you only need 2 points in order to determine the direction of a line. So think back to when we were doing the change over y over the change in x. When they gave us 2 coordinates, we could determine whether that was going to be positive or a negative slope. Essentially, that is the same thing that we are going to be doing tonight with quick graphs. So I know that those 2 points that we are talking about on a graph that we need are x-intercepts and y-intercepts. So let's think about it. We have a line as such. The x-intercept is where this line crosses the x-axis. So that would be right here. Well, when that line crosses the x-axis, I know that y is always 0. So I know that x-intercepts is x is some number when y is 0. That is always. And vice versa for y. When it crosses this y-axis right here, I know that x is always 0 and y is some number, depending on what equation we are talking about. So we're going to kind of use that idea and run with it with these quick graphs. All right? So let's take a look at the first equation. We have negative 7x plus 8y equals 56. Well, if I want to solve for 2 coordinates, the x-intercept and the y-intercept, and I know that the x-intercept always crosses the x-axis when y is 0, I can use the substitution method in order to figure out what that x value is. So that is what we're going to do. So we're going to write down our equation. We have negative 7x plus 8y equals 56. And I'm going to substitute my 0 in for my y. So I have negative 7x plus 8 times 0 equals 56. Now, you might say to me, Mr. Schultz, I know that when I substitute a 0 in, it's always going to be 0, so can I just not write it at all? Well, the answer to that is no. You need to write it out like this, step by step, showing me that you substituted a 0 in, because then that lets me know that you are solving for the x-intercept, and that you know that an x-intercept always crosses when y is 0. So now we're just going to simply solve. We have negative 7x plus 0 equals 56. Same thing as saying negative 7x equals 56. So in order to solve for x, I need to get it by itself, so I divide by negative 7 on both sides. And I get x equals negative 8. Now, in previous lessons, we've learned that our intercepts need to be in the form of coordinates, whereas our slope has to be in the form of a fraction. So we want this in the form of a coordinate. Well, our x value is negative 8 when y is 0. So now I can go to my graph and I can plot that point. So when x is negative 8 and y is 0, I will be right here on my graph. Well, I have 1 out of 2 points. So now I need to find the y-intercept. So we will be using the same exact process, except this time we are substituting the 0 in for, yes, I hope you said it, the x. So now I have, use a different color here, we have negative 7, and I substitute my 0 in for x, plus 8y equals 56. Negative 7 times 0, I know that is always 0. And that is the same thing as writing 8y equals 56. And now I solve for y. I divide on both sides by 8. And I get y to be 7, a positive 7. And then again, I need to write this in the coordinate form. So when x is 0, I know that y is 7. So now I can go back to my graph again. and plot this point. So I know the y-intercept needs to cross the y-axis. So when x is 0 and y is a positive 7, we will plot it right there. Now I have 2 points. Now I can connect those 2 points and make a line. So I know that this equation that they have given me that is not in y equals mx plus b is a positive slope because it's going from right to left. And now from this graph I could be able to determine what the slope is. But for this lesson and for these purposes, we are only worried about finding the x-intercept, the y-intercept, graphing them, and quickly figuring out what our line looks like. All right, so let's try another problem then. So let's take a look at example 2. 14x minus 9y equals 63. We're going to use the same process. So right above my x-intercept as such, I know when the x-intercept is when it crosses the x-axis. Well, that is when y is always 0. And I have no idea what that x value is, so I would be solving for that. So I have 14x minus 9 times 0, because I know that the y value is always 0 for the x-intercept, equals 63. I go ahead and solve 14x minus 0 equals 63. Same thing as saying 14x equals 63. Now I solve for x. Both sides divide by 14. Divide by 14. I get x equals this fraction, 63 over 14. That can be reduced then. If I divide by 7, I get 9 over 2. Now, I know my coordinate. I need to write this in a coordinate form. It would be 9 over 2 and 0. Now, in the previous example, we went ahead and we took that coordinate and we plotted it. If you take a look at our graph, it's a little difficult to plot a fraction, a 9 halves. It's a little difficult to plot a 9 halves. All right? So what we're going to do, let's solve for the y-intercept now. Let's see if that gives me anything. So I know that the y-intercept, the x is always going to be 0, and y is going to be some number. So let's solve for this one this time. I know that 14, and I substitute 0 in, times 0 minus 9y, equals 63. Well, 14 times 0 is 0, minus 9y equals 63. Same thing as writing negative 9y equals 63. Now I solve for y, so I need to divide both sides by negative 9. 63 divided by a negative 9 should give you a negative 7. So this one works out nicely. My coordinate would then be 0, negative 7. So I can go ahead to my graph. I can plot my y-intercept when x is 0 and y is negative 7. It is right there. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we need 2 points in order to figure out the direction of our graph. Well, I have a 9 halves over 0. And it's hard to graph a fraction. Therefore, what I'm going to do is take my equation that is not in the y equals mx plus b form and put it into the y equals mx plus b form. So to do so, I will do it right under the equation. So I need to get y by itself. So I need to move this 14x. So I will subtract 14x. Subtract 14x. So I get a negative 9y equals 63 minus 14x. All right, now I need to get y by itself, so I must divide by negative 9. That means I divide everything on the right side by negative 9 as well. So then you should get your equation to be y equals 63 divided by a negative 9 is negative 7. And a negative 14x divided by a negative 9 is a positive 14 over 9x. Now, the reason that we are solving this for the y equals mx plus b form is because now I can obviously tell what my slope is. In y equals mx plus b, m is my slope. So in this case, my m equals 14 over 9. Well, I know that slope is rise over run, so I have to rise up 14 and run over 9 spots to the right because we are talking about a positive slope. So therefore, I can take that slope, and now I can plot another point. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and over 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I have 2 points. Now I can draw my line. Now, in order to check ourselves to make sure that our line does work out with our x and y intercepts. Well, my y-intercept worked out nicely. I plotted that, so I know that is there. My x-intercept was the reason I had to put it into the y equals mx plus b form. So 9 halves. Well, if you think about 9 halves, that number is 4.5, correct? 2 can go into 9 4 times, and I'm left with a half. So 4.5. Well, if I take a look at my graph, and I figure out, well, where did the line intercept the x-axis? Well, if I look right here, I see that it intercepts it at the 4.5 mark. So then I can confirm that, yes, this does work out. That this x-intercept is correct. My y equals mx plus b form is correct. So that is a way to quick graph. So some will work out nicely, like example 1. And some may work out where you get a fraction. If you get a fraction, then you need to go ahead, step back, look at your equation, put it into the y equals mx plus b form, and solve for the slope. Once you find the slope, then you can do your rise over your run. All right, so I hope you guys got some useful information out of tonight, and I hope you're ready to bring this class tomorrow, and we will work hard. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Have a good night.